So the conversation on matters and issues that affect us in the 5 core domains of life continues. Welcome to my perspective. This is where we share information that have a direct effect or indirectly effect on the 5 core domains of life. Talk about the cognitive domain, talk about the physical or the somatic, of course, domain of life, talk about our thoughts, talk about our feelings, and finally talk about our behavior. So this conversation focuses on the things that affect those 5 core domains of life. My name is Makubuya Fred. I am a clinical psychologist by profession, and part of the things that occupy my day-to-day function, of course, with the children that I deal with the elders that I deal with the fellow adolescents, the youth, the married men and unmarried men, of course, wives to different husbands. That occupies my day-to-day in my trainings and conferences. These are some of the core discussions that we keep holding. And thank you those that are following us, of course, from within our country and those following us outside Uganda as a country. Today my perspective will focus on a principle called the MAD principle. The MAD principle is an acronym that means 3 fundamental things that I have tested, that I have seen, that I've heard people talk about, that those that have embraced this MAD principle have been able to climb through the different odds, and they've actually become versions of themselves. But those that have struggled with this principle called the MAD principle have actually ended up halfway their journey of life and halfway not getting to where exactly they want to go. And so the MAD principle is a principle that will help us shape the many goals, the ambitions, our goals, our visions, our objectives for why we actually exist. And so I hope that you and I will be able to put this principle called the MAD principle into perspective, that at the end of the day we can be able to move from one place to the other. So the MAD principle is an acronym that means yes, ability and desire. And so many of us in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day living, in our strive to make sure that we become better people, better versions of ourselves, create a unique identity that no any other person exists. Many of us that have the desire and would want to become people, men and women of influence, men and women of exposure, men and women that will stand before different audiences and people and challenge the world in one way or the other. These are principles that have been tested that will actually help us. So the first principle is about means. Anybody on the journey has a dream. And for the dream to be sure that it will come to pass, there is what we call means. And so the principle of means actually presents us to the fact that if we want to go to places where we want, for instance, you want to become a particular person in an area of discipline or in an area of profession. Yes, you have the ability. Yes, you have the desire. But do you have the means? And I know this is one of the questions that many young people sometimes do not ask themselves. Somebody will come and tell you, Fred, we usually actually address this when it comes to our therapeutical sessions, when we are helping people to look at the resources around them and be able to utilize them and be able to move forward. And so if somebody has a vision, somebody has a place of desire, somebody wants to get to a particular place, there's what we call the means. So when we talk about the means, we are simply saying, how are you going to get where you want? What is it that is going to help you to get to the place that you want? What is it that is going to be a facilitating factor to drive you to the place that you want? So what is that thing? It could be the physical. It may not be physical, but what exactly is going to help you to get to the desired place of your comfort? That is a principle of what we call the means. One time I was speaking to one of the friends in a session, and somebody told me, Fred, I want to go to US. And one of the callers, I asked him, is that, why do you want to go to the US? Yes, he had the desire to go to the US, but he never had the means. So my role was to help him go through what we call the process through which this person will actually get to the US. And then I was able to identify him with the real facts that if you want to go to the US, you can't go to the US unless you have the essentials. And one of the essentials that you need, you either need a passport and you also need a visa. So I asked him, do you have one of these? He's like, I don't have any of these. I said, okay. So if you want to go to the US, so what sort of means will you get there? He told me, yeah, you can get there by air transport, you can get there by water transport. He told me that some people go to the US through the water transport. Of course, I never said no, because it's possible. But the question is, how long will it take you to get to the United States of America if you use the water transport? And so at the end of the day, our zeroing factor was, you can only get to the US in the shortest time possible through the air transport. But remember, this person does not have a visa, he does not have a passport to get to the US. And so one of the fundamental things now we started laying down was, how do we get to the United States of America? You need a visa, you need a passport. When you have all those, plus the other factors, do you have the money to clear the fares? He did not have the money. He said, okay, so we must be able to organize this money, so that for us to be able to board this plane that will take us to the States of America, you must have a passport, which requires money. You must have a visa for you to get this money, to get whatever you want. And then the rest of the other things. In other words, he had the desire to get to a particular place, but he never had what we call the means. Friends, many times we have the desire to do so many things, but sometimes we underlook the facts and the factors that will lead us to get there. So the means is one of the core principles that helps us on a day-to-day basis. If your goal is to become a mentally healthy person, so what sort of means do you need in order to establish yourself, in order to build yourself? What are the means that you must put in place for you to live a healthy life? If you want to set up a business, the business will not set up itself. In other words, there are means that you must go through in order to establish this business. If you have a dream of a particular career in a particular field, the question is, what do I need to get to that particular place? What are the means that will facilitate me to get to the desired point of life that I want? I remember at one time I have ever worked in one of the media houses. I always desired to work in a media house. And then one of the things I kept asking myself, so how do I get the access and the opportunity to work on TV? And so I made sure that I begin to look for people who have a connection in the world of journalism and mass communication. And I went ahead and did so. And after a while, I was able to get to that place. Of course, after a while, I was able to resign from that work, and then I proceeded with something else. So the point of means is very key in helping us get to the places that we desire in our day-to-day life. Number 2, under the MAD principle, is what we call the ability. Thank you very much that you have the desire. Thank you very much that you have the means. But do you have the ability? Some of the ability may be physical ability. Some of the things that we want require actually physical ability. Some of the things that we want require emotional ability. Some of the things that we desire require psychological ability. Your mind must be sober. Your mind must be upright. So some of the things that we desire in our day-to-day life would require a psychological kind of facilitation or ability in order to help us get to what we want. Some of the things that we require will require financial muscles. So the financial ability is very key in helping us facilitate the goals and the journeys of what and where exactly we want to go. Some of the abilities are actually in terms of skill. So you want to be somewhere, you want to be in a particular place, you want to be in a particular position, but do you have the skill? Some jobs will require you to have good communication skills. So do you have those skills? Some jobs will require you to probably have skills of managing a camera. Do you have those skills? Some jobs will require you to have what we call communication oratory skills. So are you able to speak? Some jobs, some opportunities will require you to have a sober reasoning mind. So do you have some of these day-to-day skills, the personal, the intrapersonal skills, the validational skills, the empathy skills? Are you able to understand people at deeper level? So some of the things that we desire in life will actually point us to the fact that if we are going to be able to rise and get to the things that we desire, one of those core issues that you and I must be able to put into consideration under the MAD principle is the principle called ability. And lastly, under the MAD principle is the desire. I know many people in this country that have the means. I know so many people in this country that have the ability, but they don't have the desire to do certain things. So the engine, the fuel that keeps you moving on a day-to-day basis is very, very fundamental. Now, however much you have the means, however much you have the ability, the physical, the cognitive, the social skills, the emotional skills, but when the willingness for you to do the particular kind of thing is not present, then the rest of the things will actually be in vain. So the MAD principle is a principle that I have tested. The MAD principle is a principle that many people have tested. The MAD principle of means, ability, and desire is a principle that we use on a day-to-day basis. That exactly helps us to push us from one place to the other. So the question is, if you do not have all these in place, what are you in position to do in order to rise through the different challenges and troubles of this world and be able to actually move from one place to the other? So the principle of means, the principle of ability, and the principle of desire is very, very important. Fundamentally, all this, how you look at things, your perspective, your perception, your understanding, the ability to make all different calculations is very key, is very fundamental, is very essential, very significant in helping us move from one place to the other. This is my perspective. Remember to subscribe, remember to like the channel, and kindly make your comment, both in agreement, but I also believe in feedback, which if you don't disagree with me, please also make that opinion, because it is also very important and very healthy for our day-to-day movement. This is my perspective. My name is Fred.